Do car salesmen make good money? Check it out. What's going on, guys? It's Corey. So I want to talk about this topic here, right? Do car salesmen make good money? Because I constantly get asked this question, right? Whether it's people that's never been in the industry, whether you just started in the industry, or whether you've been in the game for a while, right? Sometimes you guys see people that's made a lot of money selling cars and you're like, okay, is this something that happens, for everyone, or is this something that happens for a select few, right? And I want to kind of talk about a few factors and to answer this question, do car salesmen make good money? My personal answer is, first, what's good to you, right? So I'll say, obviously, it's relative to what's good to you, right? What I will say, though, is my very first full year in the industry, I got started in the car sales game when I was only 19. My first full year, I was able to make $150,000. And I was only 20 years old when I did it, right? So I don't know too many other industries in which you can come in with no prior sales experience, only had one prior job to that, before I started selling cars, which was as a beach attendant, right? And no sales skills and come in and make $150,000. And at 22, I was able to make over $200,000 selling cars, right? So for me, I would say, yes, car salesmen can make good money, but that's obviously my perspective. And I want to share, these 3 points in which can help you, come to that conclusion yourself, right? So first, let's talk about the reality of the car business as a car salesman. Okay, as a car salesman, you get paid when you sell, okay? You don't get paid if you don't sell. Now, we get things that we call a draw, which is like an hourly pay, in which you would typically have to pay back when it's taken from your commission. So majority of car sales jobs, especially if you work at a franchise dealership, right, it's going to be 100% commission. So although the earning potential is also extremely high, all right, if you are a lazy person and you don't really put in the work and the effort and the time, your earning potential could also be the lowest of lowest, right? You can make nothing. Literally, you can go and make minimum wage as a car salesman if you don't sell cars. You're probably not going to be selling cars for too long. More than likely, a dealership is going to let you go, right? You're not going to be able to just, sell 1 to 2 cars a month and think you're going to be able to do that forever. That's not going to fly, right? In the car sales game. So they typically push you to be decent, right? Like normally the quota for most dealerships is like 8 to 10 cars will probably make you anywhere from 4 to 5 to 6 grand. Right, on a monthly basis, if you're able to, actually sell that much. So for you, that could be considered good money. But the reality is, yes, although the earning income potential is high, right? Because you can make a lot more than 6 figures selling cars, right? You can make multiple 6 figures selling cars if you're very good at it, right? What's going on, everyone? So a lot of you may be interested in figuring out how you can sell more cars or just make more money in general. Listen, click the first link in the description to join the Smarter Salesman University community. Once again, click the first link in the description to join the Smarter Salesman University community. I'm looking forward to helping you out, see if we can share some nuggets with you. More importantly, looking forward to meeting you. Let's get back to the video. But you also can make nothing. So it's a wide spectrum, and where you fall on that spectrum ultimately is up to you, right? So now I want to get into point number 2, my experience versus others. So me, when I got started in the car sales industry, right, I looked around and I seen guys that, were selling a bunch of vehicles, right? And they had years in the game. And I always try to figure out how can I, become one of the top salespeople. So I would ask questions, right? I would ask them, hey, what do I have to do to start getting customers? Or how can I, sell more cars? Or I was very hungry. I was in a position to where I feel like I had to make things work, right? So I feel like I had no other choice but to get good at selling cars. So when I started talking to these people, they weren't giving me the answers that I wanted. Most of the time they'll tell me, hey, you kind of just got to wait. You got to put some years in the game, get a book of business, things like that. I was like, okay, that all sounds good. That all sounds nice, but I want to see if there's a way for me to, start doing this now, right? Start, generating my own clientele, bringing my own leads in. So I reverted to social media. I reverted to making content, creating ads, bringing in my own clientele. Right. And what I noticed is that was me being proactive. So that was my experience. Right now, what I see other car salespeople do, which is why a lot of them will say, no, car salesman, you can't make good money, whatever the case may be. A lot of the times they'll just sit around and wait for opportunities and wait for an up, wait for a phone pop. That was their exact schedule. They had no plan. They didn't come into work with any structure. They didn't come into work with any plan. They would just come in, sit outside, wait for an up to come in. If the person came in, great. They talked to them. Maybe they sold them, maybe they didn't. Right. Imagine if you were coming to work every single day and you just talked to one person. One person a day, right? And if you're only talking to one person a day, more than likely you're not closing every single person that you talk to, right? On average, let's say your average is one person a day. You're not going to close every single person that you talk to, right? And that's your entire month. So maybe for the month you finish with 12 to 15 cars. Like that's decent, right? That's a decent car salesman. But obviously if you want to make the big bucks, if you want to make a lot of money, multiple 6 figures selling cars, more than likely you're not going to do it selling 12 to 15 cars a month, right? So other car salespeople, they looked at it as a job, right? It was just another job for them. For me, I looked at it like I was running my own business, because as a business owner, you don't get paid unless you make a sale. You don't get paid unless you generate your own customers and, generate your own clientele. That was my view of selling cars. Other car salespeople, they looked at it like it's just another job. And I think you lose a lot of leverage when you position yourself like that to the dealership that you work for, right? If all you do is wait for the odd up to come in, the internet lead, the phone pop, you lose leverage, right? As opposed to if you were to generate your own leads in your own business, you actually gain leverage. What do I mean? Or what do I mean by you gain leverage? Well, you bringing in your own customers and clientele. Let's say now you're generating your own leads. You got your leads, you got the dealership leads. Now you have multiple customers. You have a lot more influx of leads coming in on a daily basis. Well, because you generate your own business, that gives you leverage over the dealership. You now become an asset, right? You now become an asset. That opens doors for conversations such as your own schedule, such as your own pay plan. How do you do that? Well, you can go to your GM and say, listen, I'm generating my own leads in my own business. I'm not solely dependent on the dealership anymore. I don't think it's fair for me to be getting paid the same as this other car salesman that's 100% reliant on the dealership, right? You can tell them, hey, I'm bringing in my own leads. It doesn't cost you guys anything, right? For you to generate deals for me. And I think I deserve to get paid a little bit more commission because I am generating my own business, and it does come with costs, right? These are the type of conversations you can start having because now you have leverage. You become more of an asset to where you work, as opposed to, just being like all the typical salesmen, just working the CRM, working old leads, making 100 phone calls a day, working systems such as like Mastermind, which they all work. Don't get it twisted, right? All of these strategies make sense, right? But at the same time, I think you should be focused on also generating your own business. So number 3, let's talk about some tips and tricks, right, to actually making good money as a car salesman. And these are certain things that I pretty much understood, from the jump, or also things that I picked up along the way, right? And as a car salesman, pretty much there's 2 skills you need to master, right? One is going to be sales, right? Because you need to learn how to actually, sell people. Obviously, you need to make them get interested in the product that you're selling, help them see the benefits in the product that you are selling, so that way they can obviously buy the vehicle, right? And you also need to learn marketing, right? If you can combine those 2 skills, then ultimately you're going to do very well in car sales, right? Because like I said, this is pretty much the main 2 skills in business in general. And if you look at it like you're running your own operation, your own business, then learning those 2 skills are essential. I'll boil it down to this. Like, you need to learn the car business in and out, for example, right? Like I try to learn as much of the car business as possible, how gross is made, right? Like, okay, what are the principles behind making gross? I think I've touched up on certain things like this on this channel, right? Or if I haven't, it's definitely inside of SSU. Okay, so how gross is made, like, okay, what's the sales process that I need to take customers through? Or like, what works best for me? What's my style, right? Having good attitude, things of that nature, right? These are things that you need to apply to your game in order for you to become better at sales. And there's obviously a bunch of, other factors that go into play as well, but I'm kind of just briefly going over everything, right? And marketing, right? As a car salesman, like I said, my marketing tactics were primarily generated from social media, right? I used a lot of organic content and paid marketing. I combined the 2, right? And which helped me start getting customers coming in on a daily basis. I was getting at least 5 to 10 new leads every single day, sometimes even more, right? Depending on how much I was willing to put in. But speaking of that, that's essentially what this whole video is about, right? You get what you put in car sales. If you put in nothing, if you don't work smarter to some degree, right, then you're not going to get much back out of the game, right? Car sales is an input game. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it, right? One of the best tips that I can give to you is if you start as a car salesman, if you're considering, or if you already are a car salesman, right? Listen, income producing activities, right? 3 words, income producing activities. When you're at work, you need to focus on things that make you money, right? So whether it's you making phone calls, whether it's you creating an ad, for your social media, whether it's you creating content, whatever it is, you need to focus on the income producing activities. Because if you can put majority of your time, just basically all of your time when you're at work and you're focused on income producing activities, posting on marketplace, whatever it is, right? Majority of the time you're going to make good money, because once again, like I said, car sales is you get out what you put in into the game. If you don't put in much, if you're like everyone else, just kind of sitting around doing the bare minimum, then obviously you're going to be, the average car salesperson. If you want to make good money, right, like I said, that might be relative to you. Or if you want to make multiple 6 figures selling cars, then you have to put in the inputs, right? You have to, actually put an effort in, right? You can't just sit back and just think that, hey, I'm going to just take ups all day, which for some guys it works, right? But there's a reason why a lot of the time people, the car sales industry is like a roller coaster, right? 1 month you're up, 1 month you're down. It's because your only sole strategy is dependent on the dealership, right? If you had other strategies, one thing you'll notice is most top car salespeople, they're normally always having a good month. Now, certain months are obviously going to be better than others, right? But to everyone's standard, typically they will usually always have a good month, right? Now, there's certain factors that you can control and there's certain factors that you cannot control, right? For example, like, you know, when there was a shortage in inventory on new cars or whatever the case may be, obviously we cannot control those factors. But when things are going smooth and when vehicles are on the lot, it should not be any excuse for you not to be able to sell, for you to have a good month and make good money that month, right? Because the inventory is there. Now all you got to do is find the clients. The reason why most people still struggle, even though that things are going well, relatively well for them at the dealership, is because they don't have a set strategy. They don't have a plan. They go in and they kind of just wing it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you all in the next one. I'm glad you made it to the end of the video. I got two options for you. You can either watch the next video or you can click the first link in the description to join the Smartest Salesman University community if you're ready to take your car sales career to the next level. I'm looking forward to helping you out, see if I can share some nuggets with you. More importantly, looking forward to meeting you. Have a blessed day.